Throughout history, over 99% of all organisms that have ever lived on Earth have gone extinct. As new species adapt to ever-changing habitats, older species disappear. However, the rate of extinction isn't always consistent. At least a few times in the last 500 million years, between 75% to 90% of all species on Earth vanished in a blink due to events we term as mass extinctions. Although mass extinctions are catastrophic, they pave the way for new forms of life to emerge on the planet. Today, we'll delve into some of the incredible creatures believed to be extinct or on the brink of extinction. Enjoy the journey. Pteranodon. Is this a recent fabrication or evidence that gigantic ancient lizards might still be among us? There's been an image circulating on the internet purportedly showing American Civil War soldiers alongside a pteranodon. The catch? These flying reptiles are believed to have gone extinct 72 million years ago, hence it's hard not to suspect the dinosaur in the image as a contemporary forgery. Yet if this photograph truly dates back to the Civil War period, it's an astounding work, especially given they wouldn't have had knowledge about pteranodons. The pteranodon was scientifically described for the first time in 1876, while the American Civil War occurred between 1861 and 1865. What's more peculiar, another similar photograph surfaced later. Allegedly taken in 1890, it highlights the thunderbird, a mythological creature prevalent in Native American tales. There were claims of this creature being found and shot in a small village in Arizona. Don't these events strike you as oddly intriguing? Japanese sea lion. Japanese sea lions were native to the shores of the Sea of Japan and other Far East countries. They had small faces, soft, light-colored whiskers, and large, dark eyes. With two flippers that made movement in water easy, they possessed a soft and lightweight fur-like skin that dried rapidly after each dive. These sea lions, which generally preferred flat and sandy coasts, began to be hunted by Japanese fishermen in the early 1900s. Records indicate that about 3,200 sea lions were hunted at the start of the century and that their numbers dwindled to a few dozen by the 1930s. Due to the inability to control hunting, their species became extinct in the 1940s. Nubian lion. Once thriving in the plains of North Africa, the Nubian lions were among the largest subspecies of lions. These magnificent cats could weigh up to an average of 250 kilograms. Male Nubian lions were characterized by their dark and long manes, which stretched from their shoulders to their bellies, resembling a cloak. These powerful predators have their place in history as well. It is known that they fought against the now extinct Caspian tigers and gladiators in the ancient Roman arenas, were displayed in the zoo at the Tower of London, and were presented as gifts to African royal families. Their population in North Africa saw a significant decline in the 18th and 19th centuries, and they were hunted to extinction due to population control policies. The last known wild representative of the species was shot in Morocco in 1920. Today, while there are lions identified as Nubian lions in zoos, how purebred they are remains a matter of debate. Pinta Island tortoise. In 2012, the world lost Lonesome George, the last known representative of the Pinta Island tortoise. In his final years, George was considered one of the rarest creatures on Earth. In fact, once upon a time, the Galapagos Islands were home to over 300,000 giant tortoises. Weighing up to 90 kilograms, some of these tortoises could live for more than a century. The giant tortoises were easily distinguishable from a distance due to their tall and thick shells. Unfortunately, this characteristic didn't work in their favor. With whalers and pirates beginning to hunt giant tortoises in the 19th century, their population experienced a sharp decline. With the subsequent death of Lonesome George, the species became extinct. Cattle antelope. Once abundant in North African countries like Morocco, Libya, and Egypt, the addax antelope, also known as the screwhorn antelope, is now classified as critically endangered. Reaching weights of up to 225 kilograms, these animals are sociable creatures that prefer to live in herds. To avoid natural predators like hyenas and cheetahs, they tend to emerge during the cooler parts of the day. Furthermore, the discovery of addax remains and hieroglyphs at certain archaeological sites in Egypt indicates their significance in ancient Egyptian culture. Tasmanian tiger. With its powerful saltwater crocodiles, venomous taipan snakes, and deadly funnel web spiders, Australia is as intimidating as it is fascinating. Regrettably, some species in the country have become extinct over time, and the Tasmanian tiger is one of them. It is known that the last surviving example of the largest known marsupial predator died in 1936. Weighing around 19 kilograms and standing about 60 centimeters tall, these animals fed on small kangaroos, marsupial rats, and rodents. This species, which emerged millions of years ago, was last captured near Tasmania in 1933 and has not been seen since. These nocturnal creatures, while resembling dogs, also bore kangaroo features, such as pouches and rigid tails. It's believed that the Tasmanian tiger's closest relatives are the Tasmanian devil or marsupial anteaters. They are assumed to have died out due to their natural habitats being overtaken by dogs and the onset of hunting. Videos taken in various zoos in 1911, 1928, and 1933 provided the last glimpses of Tasmanian tigers on Earth. Efforts were made to resurrect this species, believed to share genes similar to the Tasmanian devil, but were unsuccessful. In the 19th century, Tasmanian tigers were relatively common in Tasmania. With the arrival of sheep in Australia, they quickly gained a reputation as bloodthirsty animals, a misconception. Modern 3D simulations showed that Tasmanian tiger jaws weren't robust enough to tear apart sheep. It's presumed that wild dogs hunted the sheep instead. However, due to the minimal information known about these creatures, they were driven to extinction primarily because of uncontrolled hunting. Experts attempted to save the species in zoos, but their efforts were in vain. On the other hand, there are occasional reports of Tasmanian tiger sightings in remote areas. In March 2017, 2 separate sightings in North Queensland made headlines. Perhaps some of these mesmerizing creatures have genuinely managed to survive against human cruelty. Puma. Once native to the eastern parts of North America, pumas were recently added to the list of extinct species. Last seen in their natural habitat about 80 years ago, these mesmerizing creatures had very few natural predators due to their size. Hence, it is believed that they were eradicated by humans. Pumas, in particular, are known to have fallen victim to farmers who wanted to protect their livestock. On the other hand, pumas are characterized as species that are elusive and quite shy around humans. Arctotherium, angustidens. At 3.5 meters in length and weighing up to 2 tons, the Arctotherium angustidens was the largest bear species ever to have lived. Native to South America, this species weighed at least 450 kilograms more than today's largest bears, and was 9 times heavier than its closest existing relative, the spectacled bear. It was so large that its humerus was nearly the size of those found in elephants. The giant bear, which went extinct about 800,000 years ago, had a diet similar to today's brown bears. This has raised questions about the reasons for its extinction. The Arctotherium angustidens was adaptable to the changing food sources in its habitat. An increase in carnivores in the region likely led to the species' decline. One theory suggests that as the giant bears became more reliant on vegetation, they gradually shrunk in size and were eventually outcompeted by other carnivorous species. Giant swans. Swans are found in various parts of the world and prefer temperate environments. Although they are among the largest birds of modern times, they used to be much bigger. The Cygnus falconeri, commonly known as the giant swan, lived around Malta and Sicily from 800,000 to 150,000 years ago. Fossil evidence suggests these birds were about 1/3 larger than today's swans, meaning they could measure up to 2 meters from beak to tail. During their existence, it's believed they were longer than the region's dwarf elephants and too large to fly. The giant swans became extinct before human activities began in the area. It's theorized that these creatures fell victim to major environmental changes and newly migrating predators competing for limited resources. Javanese tiger. The Javan tiger, a subspecies of the tiger, is one of the longest-lived creatures on our planet. It gets its name from Java Island in Indonesia, where it once roamed. Male Javan tigers could grow up to 2 meters in length and weigh as much as 140 kilograms, while females were known to be relatively smaller. Moreover, the claws of the Javan tiger were larger than those of other tiger subspecies. Mountainous and forested regions were perfect habitats for Javan tigers. They particularly favored the southeastern coast of the island as their living area. Their preferred meals consisted of wild boars, deer, and buffaloes. The increasing human population on the island continually reduced the natural habitats of these majestic creatures until the 1970s. With the addition of hunting activities, the Javan tigers vanished from the face of the earth. Ledumahadi mafube. The Ledumahadi mafube was a dinosaur that lived approximately 200 million years ago around what is now South Africa. Its name translates to a giant thunderclap at dawn in the Sotho language spoken in the region where its remains were found. Not only was Ledumahadi the largest animal of its time, but it was also closely related to the brontosaurs. Weighing in at 12 tons, this creature was twice the size of an African elephant. What's fascinating about this dinosaur is that it seems to represent a transitional species. While the ancestors of Ledumahadi were smaller and moved primarily on 2 legs, later generations, like the brontosaurs, grew larger and moved on all 4s. Ledumahadi was mainly a quadruped, but could rise onto its hind legs to reach for food high above. This dinosaur also supports scientists' belief in the existence of Pangaea, a supercontinent where all the Earth's landmasses were once joined. Ledumahadi shared close ancestry with dinosaurs that lived during the same period in Argentina. This kind of kinship would have been possible only if there wasn't an ocean separating the 2 countries. Meganeura. Meganeura, a creature that resembled a giant dragonfly, was the largest of its kind and lived about 300 million years ago. With a wingspan reaching up to 66 centimeters, it was the largest flying insect known to have ever existed. The first fossil specimen was discovered in France in 1880. At first glance, they might resemble dragonflies, but they differed in their movement and had additional extensions in their abdomens. However, they shared the carnivorous trait. Their sharp teeth allowed them to feed on invertebrates and other insects, and they could also fend off incoming threats. Their wings had an unusual vein structure, making them much more flexible than today's flying insects. The enormous size of these insects is believed to be due to the high oxygen levels in the atmosphere during their time. Whereas oxygen comprises about 21% of the air today, 300 million years ago, it was around 35%. It's theorized that the changing atmosphere, which made it impossible for them to get enough oxygen, ultimately led to their extinction. Giant horned rhinoceros. If you thought unicorns only existed in legends, let me introduce you to the giant horned rhino. Also known as Elasmotherium or the Siberian unicorn, these colossal creatures emerged in Eurasia about 3 million years ago. Extinct 29,000 years ago, these giant horned rhinos stood 2 meters tall and weighed up to 4.5 tons. Their most striking feature, as you might guess, was the massive horn protruding from the front of their skulls. While it's known they inhabited between the Don River in Russia and Kazakhstan, evidence suggests they ranged over a much wider area. It's believed they were herbivores with fur similar to woolly mammoths. Their giant horns served multiple purposes, for defense, offense, attracting mates, and even digging when necessary. The exact cause of Elasmotherium's extinction isn't clear, but climatic changes resulting in reduced grasslands probably played a part. Additionally, depictions of animals on cave walls in France bear a striking resemblance to these rhinos, suggesting they might have inspired the mythical unicorns. So do you believe in unicorns? Titanoboa. 58 million years ago, northern Colombia was a vast, swampy forest, much hotter and more humid than it is today. These conditions paved the way for giant turtles, massive crocodiles, and overshadowing them all, creatures like the Titanoboa. These enormous reptiles, stretching up to 12 meters in length and weighing a ton, might resemble the boa constrictors, but their ability to swim in swampy waters and eat almost anything made them more akin to anacondas. The girth of a Titanoboa was nearly that of a human waist. If we were around during their time, they probably wouldn't hesitate to make a meal out of us. They were the largest snakes ever to have lived on Earth. We can consider ourselves lucky not to encounter such massive serpents in our current age.